By this time of the story, she spent her entire life either as a queen or being groomed to become the queen.
All women are queens. If she breathes, she's a god!
Hello friends and welcome back to ReddX, your source for the freshest daily cringe content anywhere on the internet. Promise, swearsies, it's just a fact and it's totally science. Go ahead and look it up. Today we are jumping into r/Tales of Neckbeards. We got a little more of that TBOATI saga just trickling in, you know, just when I think it's over, it ain't over. And I am really grateful to user Anonymous Gripers, aka the character consultancy, because I was looking for something a little bit lighter, you know what I mean? We've had some very serious beard stories in the past few days, and I'm just looking for something to kind of lay back, relax with, something maybe not too serious. You know, TBOATI's a creep, but he's not the worst creep that we've ever seen. It's pretty hard to cross the lines that some of these beards have crossed when you've got an ocean separating you, so thank God for that. I'm hoping we could just have a nice relaxing ride today, and it's actually about TBOATI's co-writer Jay, who I was wondering about, so that'll be pretty cool. So let's get some plugs and disclaimers out of the way, and then we will dive right into some TBOATI neckbeard cringe. The beard of 1,000 irritations. We need to talk about Jay. Oh, violent Jay. I don't think anybody's gonna know what the hell I'm talking about there, but that's okay. Hi everyone, and welcome to part 10. Wow, double digits, hi-oh, of my experiences with the beard of 1,000 irritations, or TBOATI for short. If you found this part and you want to start at the beginning, you can find part 1 here or in the description where we've got all of the parts listed. I'm sure that's getting pretty beefy. Hard to miss. To quickly recap, TBOATI has a sci-fi story in the works and has been hiring me, a writing coach, to help him with his world building development and to get his story written and ready for publishing. Working with him can be frustrating at times. Well, it would take less time to talk about the times that it isn't frustrating, so I'm writing my experiences with him here to help me stay sane. I've changed a few details to protect both the innocent and the bearded. Thank you as ever to ReddX for your excellent readings. Oh, bless you. I always say, you put in the work, I put in the work. You know what I'm saying? This story was posted 4 hours ago. It is just what I needed today, so I thank you again for giving us that update. I was hungry for it. You guys are gonna need a cast list, so here it is. OP, a 30-something from Wales with an online writer coach business. The beard of 1,000 irritations, TBOATI, a European customer of mine with a dystopian post-apocalyptic sci-fi story in the works. I have only seen one picture of him, and I can tell you that he's clinically obese, and also has no beard. Not outwardly anyways. Is the beard on the inside that counts? Check out the t-shirt on Teespring. God, I'm such a whore. Oh, I've never met him, so I can't report on his hygiene, but his mom cooks for him. He has a long-distance relationship going with an American girl. Jay is TBOATI's co-writer. TBOATI depends on this guy to write the creative material for this project. Almost all of the creative material for this project, as a matter of fact. Jay isn't usually very talkative to me, which TBOATI manages by being the spokesman for the pair of them. Jay hails from a country which is known for having an issue with rampant poverty and sometimes with a somewhat regressive attitude towards women. What country's that? Eastern Europe? Southeast Asia? Africa? I don't mean to put like whole continents on blast. I'm just thinking to myself here. Oh, during ReddX's reading of the last part of this saga, he wondered aloud about Jay and how little we actually know about him. So I got to thinking about him too, and I went in search of more information to fill in some blanks. Look at OP out here doing detective work. God, I feel like I'm starting to drive the train a little bit. I do appreciate it. This part of the saga's mostly about what I found, and a conversation that I had with TBOATI afterwards. But before I get into that, I want to give you a few bonus bits and pieces of new TBOATI cringe because, hey, why not? That's what we're all here for, isn't it? Gotta get that cringe. One of the more recent conversations I had with TBOATI involved one of my new services. ReddX's readings must have really rubbed off on me because he mentioned in an earlier reading that TBOATI didn't really seem to want a writing coach, but instead a ghostwriter. So I knocked up a quick plan, including prices, for a world-building outsourcing service. It starts with me having a chat with the customer about what the planet is like, ratio of landmass to ocean, climate, type of sun, that sort of thing, making a world atlas, designing a simple ecosystem of animals, plants, fungi, and invertebrates, making a more detailed ecosystem of those four, picking out likely candidates from the ecosystem to become an intelligent or dominant species, and developing them to a Neolithic level, and if necessary, beyond. Needless to say, all that costs a lot of money. I priced the atlas up as 150 pounds. Dang, that's pretty cool, OP. So what's my cut? No, I'm just playing with you. I'm glad that I gave you a good idea for that, though. I can hardly take credit for any of it, really, because it's just me flapping my gums as usual, but I'm glad something good came of it, at least. TBOATI's still not happy with the map Jay made for him and expressed an interest in this service. When he asked about it, I wondered once again what sort of relationship these two have, where he calls him his brother, but he'd rather pay someone over the internet 150 pounds to remake this map than say, "Hey Jay, I'd like us to rework this map." Or, dare I suggest, maybe even, "Since you put so much time and effort into the map the first time despite the fact that I know you're busy, I'll make the edits this time. The consultant showed me a map tutorial, so yeah, it's okay, man. I got this. I'll make sure I base my edits on your map design, so we're not losing all of your hard work." Oh, for the day that I see TBOATI write, "I've got this." So, yeah, let's see how that plays out. Dude's never gonna say, "I got this." The closest we ever get is, "Do you got this?" I have another TBOATI morsel to add about the map. For the unfamiliar, or anyone who's just joined us, TBOATI's project is about a post-apocalyptic world divided up into 7 states, each based on the theme of a deadly sin. In the current day, the world's being manipulated from afar and in secret by super-intelligent aliens. However, TBOATI got the idea into his head that the aliens would want the landmasses to be separate, with one for each state. He mentioned this to me one day, and I pointed out that the aliens would probably just make the best of whatever combination of landmasses they get. If there are less than 7 landmasses, then surely they would adapt to that rather than fanny about trying to separate them all. Yet these aliens don't have the concept of like a border. It's really easy. You just draw out a division on the landmass. It's just quite amazing. God. There are ways of keeping states separated without landmasses being physically separate, living peacefully or at war shoulder to shoulder, building walls. I mean, let's not get into whether that's in any way, shape, or form a good idea, but it's an option, I suppose. We're gonna build a wall, and Wrath is gonna pay for it. It kills me. Even a belt of no man's land, or taking the Panama Canal approach. There are ways. But nope, he wanted to work out how the aliens could generate accelerated tectonic shift to physically rip the landmasses into 7 separate parts. Yeah, these aliens, they got big brains, but they applying it in all the wrong places. I say that they're a self-insert for TBOATI, but he kind of lacks the brain power part. I can imagine why they would bother. and tried pointing out to him that they'd likely consider this a huge waste of effort, and I think he gave up at some point. Thank God. If he brings the idea up again, then I'll push for him to leave the landmasses as it is, because hostile countries shouldering one another would generate more story, which, as I've said before, his world desperately needs. But anyways, that's all the map crap, at least for now. Something happened quite a long time ago. TBOATI made an attempt at human humor, which is fairly rare for him. Does anyone remember me saying before that one of TBOATI's species are more or less humans? Okay, well yeah, they are. A lot of you are probably familiar to some extent with the concept of anthropomorphic animal characters, who are affectionately known as furries. Some people are much more familiar with them than just the concept. We know that from my Discord. My God, the Pornos channel has devolved beautifully over there. And I mean, no kink shame, but no kink same. He had this idea to make a reference to furry culture and call his human species Hubies. God. Okay. He was pretty pleased with himself. He told me the above and asked me what I thought. I gave the cringe a moment to fade. And then I said, I get the joke, but I'd say it doesn't really land for me personally. My intention was to say that I personally didn't find it funny, but that didn't mean that nobody would. I'm sure there are a few people out there that would find it funny, and I hope to never meet them. I can't speak for anyone else after all, but that was too much negative feedback for him, and he said, okay, screw it, Gabe, and he got rid of it. And for our last nugget before we go on to Jay, there's the conversation that happened just the other day. A few days ago, a scandal broke, where it was revealed that the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's franchise had donated money to Republican politicians who had anti-LGBT views and policies. This sparked exactly the kind of outcry on Twitter that you would imagine, and TBOATI happened to see it. He reached out to me the other evening and asked if I had heard about the controversy. I hadn't, so he told me what it was about. His main issue about it was that he was just shocked at how angry people were. He felt that the reaction was vile, and that the creator hadn't harmed anyone by donating in the way that he had. I pointed out that many people would feel betrayed by a creator supporting these politicians, especially with the money that they had paid him to buy his games. So yeah, no wonder they were angry. I tried not to get into the discussion because I didn't have time for it, but I definitely have my own thoughts about what happened. I stand by people's right to feel angry. There's not much more I can say without going way outside of the remit for this post, so I'll just leave it there. Suffice to say, if you eat fish, expect bones. Yep, I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not touching this one with a 10-foot pole, man. I think TBOATI was looking for someone to chat to, and I could easily see that we were going to be at odds over this. I wonder too if he was unnerved by the idea of people flaring up like this, and at the idea that they possibly might at him. He is planning to move in with his girlfriend, who's from Texas after all, so presumably her politics are pretty right-leaning, and perhaps by extension, his too. I don't know, man, there's a lot of liberals in Texas. Anywhere you go, you'll find people with different stripes, you know? I don't think geography is like a good determining factor for politics. I do think that his reaction is definitely a good gauge of his politics, but at the end of the day, I can't dislike somebody over their politics. Like, okay, you have a different belief system, but are you a good, hardworking person? That's why I dislike TBOATI, not for his politics. Because he's lazy and dumb. Anyways, he said, the Democrats are probably just as bad as the Republicans. So I suggested that he use Google to research things a bit more, and also to get him to sod off and just let me work. Again, not buying into the false dichotomy. Not gonna sit around and pick sides and all that crap. The government is a bunch of evil bullshit writ large. I don't care which side you're on. You're a politician. That means I don't like you. So, we're finally on to Jay. Thank God for that. I was getting a little uncomfortable with all this politics and whatnot injected in the story. After a spot of digging, I found 2 of his online libraries of written works. To give context to what I found, all of these writings were fan fictions, and almost all of his stories were under 10,000 words. Most of them were actually under 5,000. He is naturally a short form writer. Around 75% of his works were commissioned by other people. I opened one story of about 3,000 words, which had a lot of comments, to read it for myself and see what it was like. I have learned from reading other writers' works that writers tend to treat commissions and passion projects much differently. I've met writers who only put the barest of effort into commissions, switch between past and present tense, can't be bothered to spell check, that kind of thing. But they lavish attention on the stories that they write out of choice. And I wondered whether Jay's talent might come out more in works that he wrote for his own pleasure. God, that seems really scummy to me. And it's also why I insist on having a hand in basically everything that I do. I was considering like outsourcing for editing and stuff like that, and I'm like, no, they don't know how I want it. I will continue to do it. I can't trust anybody. I think you're paying them money? I'm paying you money to feed me this fucking crap? Ugh. It gets me mad just thinking about it. Okay. I think you know my stand. It's a scummy thing to do, whether it's intentional or not. First of all, I should explain what happens in Jay's story, starting with the characters. There's a king and a queen who are a married couple. The husband's elderly and the wife's sort of a demigoddess who, because of her semi-divine nature, had aged much more slowly than her husband. So by the time in this story, she's only got the body of a youngish adult and probably looks like she's in her 30s. That's canon and was never addressed in the official story, although their differing rates of aging would be quite the ticking time bomb in their relationship. They have a daughter who's also a demigoddess, and the couple has a good friend who ages slowly but isn't a demigod. For some reason. Some people just age slower, I don't know. He appears in this story as sort of an uncle figure to the daughter. Hopefully not a creepy uncle. Here's the plot of the story itself. The husband summons the uncle to the palace to discuss something important. He's very old and is dying, and he wants to see his friend about something. At the start of the story, we see the uncle approach the palace and the niece comes out to greet him. Note that given the slow aging that demigoddesses experience in this world, she should be around 40 or 50 years old, but would probably look like a young adult. She and the uncle have a conversation where she basically acts like a little girl, happy to see her uncle and as carefree as a toddler at the beach. She gives no indication that there's anything on her mind, such as, you know, grieving for her father. And yes, people can and do grieve for loved ones who haven't died yet if they believe that the death is coming soon. I've seen it happen in real life before, and it is exhausting for the griever, especially if the soon-to-be departed hangs on for a long time. She also gets weirdly flirty with the uncle, because of course. And I got some creepy daddy vibes from reading that part. Yeah, no bro, just write what you're into. Again, no kink shame, but no kink same. But anyways, they part ways, and he goes into the palace to talk to the husband. The husband tells him that he can feel he's dying. The uncle refuses to accept this and gets angsty about it. And when I say angsty, I mean proper teenage, why? Angst style. I can't imagine how painful it would be having to say goodbye to a lifelong friend like this, but I also couldn't imagine two people with 80 or 90 years of life experience behind them reacting to the situation like this. Yeah, how about like sad, solemn, you know? They also giggle a whole lot. This seems to be Jay's most tried and trusted way of showing emotion. I could understand the occasional chuckle at an old in-joke to dispel the tension while they're working up towards discussing what needed to be discussed, or perhaps a bit of gallows laughter. That would make sense. But he overused the giggling so much that it pulled me even further out of the story. And then there was the adolescent-style teasing. The husband and uncle tease and insult each other the way teens do during the filler sections of coming-of-age movies. I don't know whether he literally didn't know any other way for two people to interact, or whether this was some part of an attempt to show gallows humor, but again, it did not feel like it fit for two people of this age. It's really interesting how much of Jay is shown through the works that he's written. I think he legitimately does not know any other way for two men to interact with each other. This is probably what he does around his friends and how his friends do around him. I don't really know what to say about the giggling part. A little bit of that goes a long way. You don't need to overdo it with the giggles. Although, you know, sometimes I do. There I go again. Aside from that, the dialogue was generally stiff, just like it was in TBOATI's story. But anyways, the husband hits the uncle with a second bombshell. He has one last request to make of his old friend before he dies. To marry his wife after he's gone. He says that she'll be helpless without him and will need the uncle's protection by way of his hand in marriage. No, it's like biblical times or something, where the husband dies and like the brother marries the wife or something like that. This isn't good. Let me remind you, reader, that she's a powerful demigoddess while the husband's just a regular Joe, at least in terms of his mortality. She's much more powerful than he is, so the entire premise of this didn't really make sense to me. Also, in the original work that this was a fanfic of, she's royalty, so even if you ignore her godlike status, and the fact that she's been part of a pantheon of other demigoddesses who have lost mortal loved ones and had their own lands to rule, that kingdom was always going to be primarily hers. It was he who was marrying into royalty, not her. Which would be relatively easy to write in, except the dude doesn't know what he's writing about. By this time of the story, she spent her entire life either as a queen or being groomed to become the queen, so I couldn't imagine that she'd be too emotionally fragile to cope with the whole kingdom by herself, and neither would she be unsafe. Anyone reading this ever hear of royal guards? Exactly. I have no doubt that she'd want emotional support while grieving, but to remarry for emotional support? I just don't see it. And especially not without her being an active participant in this discussion. Like I said, she's a member of a pantheon who would make the perfect support system. The uncle could definitely fit into that given his projected lifespan, but he's not a ruler, and marriage for the sake of a woman's dignity isn't really necessary in this canon. Anyway, that's the husband's request, and the uncle's totally horrified. Cue more angst for the rest of the scene as he refuses to accept, and the husband tries to talk him into it. I'll be dead soon. Please, make sure you bang my wife. Yeah, bro. I got you, fam. Jesus. The wife plays no active role in this story, despite being the main topic of discussion. The uncle must have eventually decided to honor the husband's request, because in the final scene, the uncle and the wife are standing by the husband's graveside, holding hands. Who writes a queen and makes her voiceless? Maybe she can't talk. Maybe she got a notebook full of dialogue, but just nobody looked at it. But yeah, the comments were enlightening. A lot of the comments squeed over how cute it was to see this emotional scene, especially between a set of characters who aren't written together that often. But a few questioned how Jay handled the situation with the wife and said that it felt off. I am so glad that I wasn't the only one who felt this way. Overall, I'm very concerned about Jay's ability to portray girls and women as anything other than flirty, girly, simple, helpless, or as voiceless damsels in distress. If this is how he treats female characters, how well would he handle Rebecca, the female lead in TBOATI's story, for anyone unfamiliar? Personally, I wouldn't read a whole novella written by Jay, given how he writes. It would just be too stiff and awkward to immerse myself into, and frankly, his portrayal of female characters would just leave me steaming. I don't think Jay has much interaction with the fairer sex, so he's just like, well, I don't know how to do it, so I'm not even gonna try. That way I can't screw it up. Also, if the way Jay writes women is any indication of his opinions about women in real life, then what does that say about his feelings about my inclusion in the project? I had been wondering whether he too has Asperger's, since he's always been so lukewarm towards me, but could it be that he thinks that I have nothing to contribute because I'm a female? I've yet to work this out, but hopefully I will soon. I decided to raise my concerns with TBOATI, and here's how my conversation with him went. God. I opened the conversation by saying, hey, I got a question for you. What's Jay's attitude towards women in real life? TBOATI answered,
I'd say that it's really good. Why?
Really good. This is the response my 9-year-old gives. So I told him that I'd found Jay's fan fiction library. TBOATI made the "ooh" emoticon and said,
Anonymous scriber, before you say anything, what he wrote in that continuity doesn't reflect what he thinks about women.
Which made me wonder, why did he write it that way then? I'd mentioned the story that I'd read. TBOATI confirmed that he knew that one and said,
I mainly don't see the problem with it.
I told him my two main issues about Jay's presentation of the two female characters. TBOATI said that
he was sure that presenting them like that wasn't Jay's intention, that it would be cleared up if we talked together, and that he believed Jay's reason for writing the wife as voiceless was that she wasn't the focus of the story.
Except that she bloody was! Everybody could see that she was. The whole discussion is about her, and she's just supposed to be a set piece. God, this is so wild. I hope they do get this book finished. I hope I get to read it someday. I will narrate the whole freaking thing. I don't care how terrible it is. I picked up on his comment about how if we talked, we could work it out, and I pointed out that Jay has been nothing but reluctant to talk to me throughout the 2 years that we've been on this team together. I also threw in a mention of how odd it seemed that we weren't in close contact, given that I'm on the team for lore generation purposes, and he's the writer. We should be as close as 2 Twix bars. TBOATI essentially gave up on trying to explain the depiction of the wife, saying that
he hadn't talked with Jay much about that story.
Then I mentioned the daddy weirdness between the niece and the uncle. He repeated,
he hadn't talked with Jay much about that story, but that Jay liked to write the uncle as something of a ladies' man.
I said, but with his niece, when she's already started the grieving process, having watched her father decline. TBOATI had nothing more to add, so he suggested again that
I talk with Jay about it,
which would put us back into that maybe I'll get a lukewarm response if I'm lucky camp. So I seized the opportunity and pushed for TBOATI to get on with making the group that I'd been trying to talk him into making for a while, and said, oh, you could make a 3-way DM with him and me. TBOATI, of course, stalled by saying,
you mean this evening?
So I said, I mean, you could literally make a 3-way direct message right now. And he replied,
I think I could do it, though I can't do it right now.
I answered, you were capable of having this conversation. And it looks like you're stalling again. It literally takes 10 seconds. I suggested before that he make this group, and he'd always alluded to the idea that it would take too long, so he couldn't do it at the time.
I don't have 10 seconds to spare right now.
What the hell? He said,
Okay.
and he did it. And then he said,
Done. I really gotta go now. See ya.
and that's how I made sure we got our group. TBOATI has repeatedly said that Jay is very busy with a full-time job, so I'm prepared for my conversation with Jay to not happen particularly in real time. So this morning I wrote my concerns about everything in this three-way group, and we'll wait and see what he says. In the meantime, I've looked further through his online libraries, and I can see that he has many themes of non-con and rape and a whole lot of lollipops and insects, if you know what I'm saying. I don't like what I see, and I am very much hoping that Jay tells me that he only accepts these commissions because he's really struggling financially and would rather just write whatever he's asked to get some money into his bank account. I could sympathize with that to an extent. I used to write on a commission basis, and I ended up with a lot of foot fetish customers, even though I have zero interest in feet myself. Apparently I just write it well. And if Jay's living in poverty, I can understand writing something objectionable to put food on the table. I always refused to write rape or insect or anything similar because I found it too unpleasant. But I'm female and I have to live with an ongoing risk of rape while Jay doesn't. At least nowhere near as much as I do. So perhaps he just finds it more bearable. I sincerely hope it's not a niche that he likes, and I'm gonna listen out for that. I brought up my concerns about the portrayal of female characters in TBOATI's project, including Rebecca's history, and I'll see what he says. If it turns out he actually likes writing this stuff, or if TBOATI fights for it, I'm dropping this entire project. Assuming we manage to get past this hurdle, I have yet another concern based on TBOATI's tendency to keep secrets. I'm hoping that this three-way DM isn't going to end up the placebo group to make me feel as if we're all communicating freely, and that TBOATI and Jay don't have a real thread for talking about their project. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but I do wonder. So anyways, that's everything for now. I'll keep on building the coaching, writing one-off beard stories, and the Octopreggbeard and Ranty Beard sagas. I've been looking forward to those, but I'm waiting for the right time. And I'll catch up with you guys about TBOATI again as soon as I've got something meaty to report. Perhaps the next installment in this saga will be the last, but maybe not. Until then, goodbye, and look after yourselves. TLDR, Beard's friend and co-writer on his pet project writes helpless, girlish women on the side, so I ask, what the hell's that all about? Finally get project manager and co-writer into a group with me. Well, I hope it all turns out for the best, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Now you've surrounded yourself with the beards. You might regret making this decision. I've probably mentioned it briefly in passing, but before my YouTube channel took off, I did do blogs. And a lot of people would approach me for some less than vanilla stuff, and I would always flat out refuse it. But that was the situation that I was in, you know? If I didn't have any other ongoing work, then who knows what I could have been coerced to write. As far as attaching my name to it and compiling it in an online library, hell no. I'm gonna get paid for those stories, and then the story's gonna be dead and buried as far as I'm concerned. I do not want to hear another thing about it. So it is really weird that we've uncovered this dark side of Jay. I guess Violent Jay at the beginning wasn't completely off. I kind of nailed that one without even knowing that I nailed it. God damn. He definitely seems like a weird guy. I mean, he hangs out with TBOATI, so he's got to be somewhat of a weird guy. But again, like, I don't know where he's from. It could be like a war-torn area that has some, well, what we would consider backward views, but if this is how he gets by, then I guess this is how he gets by. I try not to judge him too harshly, although I do think that it is pretty sus. Currently. We'll have to learn a little more about him before I drop the hammer and say, run, OP! But for now, yeah, just keep an eye peeled. Keep an eye pointed in his direction, because something tells me that there's something off about that boy. Possibly even more off than TBOATI. Like, TBOATI's just kind of a weird, lazy guy. Jay could have something dark hiding below the surface. Not that liking stories like this equates to like anything in reality, but it is a little weird. No kink shame, but no kink same, okay? I'm gonna put that on the t-shirt. We're gonna work on it. Don't worry about it. Anyways, friends, I do hope that you enjoyed the episode. I hope that you will like, comment, and or subscribe if you did. Check out those links in the description. That's right, we got that Teespring, my personal subreddit r/ReddX reads, wifey's channel Mr. and Mrs. ReddX, and my Amazon affiliate link, which currently goes to my microphone. We've also got links to my social media, Twitter, Discord, Facebook. Oh, and my gorgeous, wonderful, beautiful, generous patrons. I'd like to thank them all, but especially Robert Waits, TSM Kirby, Teddy the Police, Aaron W, Delicious Jelly Donut, Candy Sora, Fire Drake, Liverson, Silent Revolver, Zathras, Zero MMX, Little Lone Wolf, Vanilla Mel, Roustower, Aaron Lennox, Fisher Diggy, OG James Cook, JM Coon, Jerry, John Hero, KK, Miss Monday, Melgar the Destroyer, Mr. J, my boy Nat One Nick, Lady Nix, Katykins Elizabeth, Sidestep, Cider Drinker, Serrated Ash, Siegfried, Staples, Yeet, Synaptic Boomstick, Brilliant Tomago, Tato Ferret, That Duckin' Bug, Fusky, Redwind, Leon Embers, Naga Viper, John Indoors, A-Roxers, Cake Jerry, that's a different Jerry. Mark 211, maybe next time, Origami Cam, Princess Rosalie, Ghosty, The Last Shinobi, and the Maestro himself, Zuka Cervantes. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. I don't know how this one's gonna do, like, demonetization wise. There were some words in here that you're not supposed to say too much. Like the R-A-P-E word. Oh, that's a bad one. But whatever, we'll see if it flies. If it doesn't, then, you know, I can lean back on my patrons, which is always really nice. If you guys can assist these wonderful people in supporting the channel, that is absolutely massive. I thank you very much in advance. But if you can't right now, don't sweat it too hard, friends. I just appreciate you coming on through, hanging out with me today, and I hope that you come on back and hang out with me again tomorrow. Because really, the views is like how my beard gets buttered. Whoa! In order to join us again, you need to keep yourself safe out there. Wash your hands, but also take some time out and do something that you personally enjoy today. Maybe watching some more ReddX videos. Hey, I like it. Always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, and you definitely deserve it. I will see you in the next one, and until then, friends, bye-bye.